Are you looking to optimize your health? Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic True Health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 158. We are in for such a treat today. We have with us Dr. Jerry Gore, who's committed his life to helping people heal holistically, heal the mind, body, and soul, and achieve a level of clarity and physical health and emotional, mental peace through holistic medicine. He has a wonderful book and a fantastic clinic, and I'm really excited for the information he's here to share with us today, because I believe in so many of the modalities that he uses with his patients. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you have a wonderful story that led you to become the doctor and healer that you are today. I'd love for you to start by sharing your story with us.
Well, I graduated from the University of Illinois Medical School and took some time after that, actually, because I really didn't feel it was right for me to go on with medical training at that point, and got back into medicine through psychiatry, actually. Then I went to Northwestern University's Institute of Psychiatry, but I also went into the Gestalt Institute, and I was doing a bunch of other humanistic things at the time. So I had a kind of a eclectic view of psychotherapy at that point. So I practiced a little bit there, and then, it just didn't. I wasn't ready to continue that either. It didn't feel right. So after taking another break, I discovered some people practicing holistic medicine in Glenview, Illinois, and I went and basically apprenticed with them for several years. And they were doing holistic medicine, if you can believe it, back in 1978. They were busy with 4 physicians, busy in a medical clinic on an ashram, and they in Glenview. It was called the Himalayan Institute. And I learned literally holistic medicine by apprenticing to a physician named Dr. Rodolf Ballentine. He's quite well known in the community, and that's how I got into it.
Very cool. So after you became an MD, what led you, was there a specific event that made you say, I don't want to go give people drugs. There's something more to healing. What was there a specific
There
event?
was actually there was a specific event. I had developed walking pneumonia and maybe a little asthma, and I have to remind myself my asthma's gone now. I went and asked a few docs. I got treated traditionally, and then they wanted to put me on some medicine to help my bronchial tubes open up, which they did, but it didn't feel right. And they were bronchodilators, and I felt something's not right here. I don't want to do this. I wonder what I could do. And so I had a cousin who said, you ought to go over here to the Himalayan Institute and check them out. See what they're doing. They're doing really interesting things. And that's what I did. I became a patient first. And I went over there, and they worked with my diet and gave me some homeopathic remedies. And I got into yoga and meditation and all kinds of things. And it evolved into a holistic medical practice.
Now, I mean, you were an MD at that point. Wasn't your MD training just screaming like, "What do you mean you want me to change my diet, or what do you mean you want me to meditate? This isn't medicine." Like, was there any part of you that was?
To be honest with you, it wasn't my MD training screaming at me. It was just me screaming at me. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get off dairy. I didn't want to get off wheat. I didn't want to believe. If you can believe this, things have changed so much by this time. If you can believe it, I didn't think that diet made a difference, and I didn't want to let go of all the wonderful sugary, chocolatey, creamy, carbohydrate-filled stuff that you know, Kentucky Fried Chicken. I mean, nothing against them, but I was eating everything and anything in those days, and I didn't really want to stop that. It was me screaming at me.
Wow, and even back then, that was so advanced to recognize in the 70s that that diet played a role in health, especially foods like wheat and dairy, which now we know it's very mainstream. We know that can
Very mainstream.
right, but back then, I mean,
I
that
started,
was
yeah, you're right, Ashley. I have to remind myself that, I became a vegetarian for a while I was going through this, and nobody knew what that was. And the people who, they would lift an eyebrow up about it. Are you sure? You're sure going to be healthy? You're sure you're going to be okay? Uh, it was not known, and homeopathy was off the charts. I mean, you thought that you figured that you didn't know what you're talking about if you used homeopathic remedies or energy medicine. And even acupuncture was considered off the charts until I think it was Nixon went over and had some surgery under using acupuncture. So until these things were put on the map, they're very commonplace. Now look how commonplace meditation is now.
hmm
Meditation was unheard of in the 70s and 80s. So the fact that I got a mantra and used to start meditating in the 80s, there was a whole group of people that did that, by the way. It seemed like things were divided up into two groups: the people that did do it and the people that didn't do it. So it wasn't like it was unknown. People were looking for it. We were busy, but there were like two populations. And if you went to the other side, they just knew nothing about it. And you went into the side where people knew about it, and they were looking for you.
Right, right. It's kind of like I've been gluten free for 6 years, and if I travel to like I live in Western Washington State, and it's very conscious of different diets. But if I travel to a different state like Utah, they look at me like I have three heads if I ask if they have a gluten free menu. So there's
Is
still
that true, really? Now, even
yeah,
nowadays,
yeah, I
I'm a little
travel.
shocked by that, actually.
I know when I travel around and I ask if they have a gluten-free menu, I mean there are some restaurants or restaurant chains that are more progressive, but a lot of states still act as though it's the 90s and they have no idea what gluten is. And so it reminds me that back in the 80s when I grew up being dairy in a dairy-free household, and so we had soy milk, and I didn't get to have ice cream. I had rice dream. I don't know if you remember that. And
We raised our children on soy milk and soy products, and now we're saying soy's not so good.
right, well,
Soy's got problems with the thyroid, problem with
yeah.
digestion. There's problems with soy.
Mhm.
I want
But
to go, oi, soy.
but back then, right, what could we do? I mean, there was very, very limited choices. Now we have lots of choices, but even some of those choices are unhealthy. Like just because you're gluten free doesn't mean you're eating healthy foods. There's a lot of junk food
Right.
that's gluten free or dairy free. So we need to find what works for us, and I definitely want to get into that. So there you were studying, apprenticing with these holistic doctors. What happened next on your journey?
Well, I just learned how to practice medicine. Really, it was like an internship and it was like an old-fashioned apprenticeship. I would see patients, and my mentor, Dr. Ballentine, would come in from Pennsylvania, and we would go through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes Monday with people coming in and me practicing and him looking over my shoulder or the other way around. And I'll never forget the first time I used homeopathy. There was a child, 11-month-old child, who was banging his head against his crib every night, and his parents just got back from Germany. He had been on two different antibiotics, and they came in and said, "Please, would you please give this boy a homeopathic remedy? We really need some help." And I was just being introduced to homeopathy by Dr. Ballentine. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it, if you want to know the truth. I didn't believe in homeopathy at that point. And he said, sure. He gave him a dose of pulsatilla, for those of you who understand homeopathy, and said, come back tomorrow morning. And I'll never forget this, Ashley. I'm a newbie here to homeopathy, and they said the child came back, the parents came back. So I came out, I opened up the clinic door, the part of the clinic where I was private, and I opened it up, my office, and this little kid comes waddling over to me. This is before I had children, waddling and wraps her arms around my legs. Can you believe that? And I didn't do nothing like this happened before. And then the mother said she slept through the night for the first night. Still complained and fussed in the morning, but actually slept through the night. So that was my introduction to homeopathy. So
I
maybe we'll
love
talk
it.
more. Maybe we'll talk more about homeopathy later.
Absolutely. So, when you work with patients, walk us through some of the most important things. I know you definitely look at everyone as a bio individual, and you really cater to their individual needs and symptoms. What is the kind of like fast and hard rule that you would use for everyone? Sort of like, what is the, if you could tell 100% of the population to do these things for better health, what would it be?
Well, I would say eat less sugar, move your body, try to do a little energy medicine, and breathing is part of energy medicine, and work on your relationships and your job so that you are aligned with your purpose in life.
Do you have any feedback
Now,
for
what I
people?
just did there, to make that short answer, is I went through the physical, the energy, the mental, and the spiritual sheath, if you will. And that's how I've been taught, and that's how I see medicine, is to look at the physical, the energy, the mental, and the spiritual parts of a person to try to help them.
Perfect. That's exactly right. That's exactly what holistic medicine is, looking at every aspect of our being.
That's what real holistic medicine is. It isn't just replacing echinacea for ampicillin or penicillin. It isn't substituting an herb for something that, an anti-inflammatory. Holistic medicine is where you learn about yourself through nutrition. You learn about yourself through the supplements you're taking. You learn about yourself through mindful activities. And then what happens is a light bulb goes on. A light bulb. When you see the light bulb go on in the person, it's a miracle. I mean, it's uplifting. It's uplifting for the practitioner. Because when that light bulb goes on in the person, then they want to learn. They feel empowered. They feel all of a sudden they have some control over their life, and that's one of the endpoints of holistic medicine, is to help a person learn and grow. As a matter of fact, you might even say that holistic medicine is a vehicle for just to help uplift a person and help them grow.
I love it.
Is that too much? Am I throwing out
No,
too
that's
much at you for?
bring it on. Bring it on. My listeners are hungry and thirsty for
Oh,
this
okay.
information. Absolutely.
All right.
What are some things we should look for when hiring a doctor to make sure that they are treating us holistically?
Well, um, like I said, there are levels to going from traditional to holistic medicine, and I guess the first level would be that a person is interested in what you eat, because what you eat and the food you take in is so important. And another main level is that they're interested in your exercise program, because if a person doesn't exercise, it kind of sabotages them. And even walking. I mean, in my book, there was a slide about how you don't all cause mortality rates drop with just a little bit of exercise, not a lot. So the physician should be interested in the physical and your exercise program and your mind. How about your stress? I see people that come in for a physical problem, a headache or high blood pressure or something, and then we get into the stress levels, and you find out there's something going on in their life that won't allow them to heal. It's so stressful. So that's like a red flag that has to be handled first. So there are levels of looking at a holistic practitioner. Underlying all this is that the practitioner doesn't act like a parent. The practitioner is a facilitator. When you need a parent and in times of emergency, the physician can come in and say, do this. But most of the time, 95% of the time, the physician should be a facilitator that talks with you, has time to sit with you, kind of understands what's going on with you, and then proceeds from that understanding. Does that help? Or am I too vague?
No, I think that, well, it helps me because so many doctors I've seen act as the parent, and then it's kind of a weird dynamic. It feels authoritative, and then if some people feel like they want to rebel instead of feel like their doctor is on their team, is an advocate for them, is helping them to navigate all their health choices. So I think you're right that we want to make sure when we interview a doctor that we feel as though they're a supportive counsel.
Yeah,
Uh,
the doctor should be friendly. The doctor should not pretend that he knows it all. The doctor should be willing to learn things from the patient. The doctor should be able to provide substantive information, and the doctor should be experienced. The doctor should have a good philosophy of medicine, not just cure the symptom and goodbye. The doctor should ideally be able to host the person, the whole person, the physical and the mental and the spiritual part of the person. Now, that's asking a lot. So it's kind of like that's why I say there are layers and levels. It's a little frustrating to me because people talk about holistic medicine, but I don't think they really do holistic medicine. They may do a part of it. When I was learning a lot about nutrition, they were great with nutrition, but they weren't interested in the mind. When I was learning about homeopathy, they weren't even interested in nutrition. They were just interested in energy medicine. When I was learning in psychiatry at Northwestern University, they weren't interested in all that other stuff. They were just interested in the dynamics of psychiatry and medication. So I didn't really see people. I had a hard time finding people who tried to put the whole thing together, and that's why I thought it was such a blessing to have to this day, I feel like a blessed man. I was able to find in my life a way to work and have teachers that really fit this model that I was hungry for inside. So
Wonderful.
that's a long-winded answer to how to find a doctor that
I,
you know, maybe you should say, okay, he's board certified in functional medicine, or they're board certified in homeopathy, or they're board certified in nutrition. That all those things would help. But I guess I'm talking about not a technician, but a doctor. I'm talking about a bigger person, actually.
right. Well, I love what you're saying. I mean, you're definitely describing you and your clinic, and but I would love to have a doctor with that level of experience and that level of care, and also making sure that they're looking at all aspects of my life, because you're right. If we just look at diet, we're missing out on emotional, mental, energetic health. If we just look at psychology, we're missing out on the biochemistry of what happens when we eat a crappy diet.
Right.
you
That's
know
right. Look, if you just kept eating gluten, you said you were gluten sensitive. You know what gluten does to some people? And here you're trying to focus. You're doing your podcasts and do such good work. How could you focus when there's all this inflammation is going on in your body? I mean, it just doesn't kind of make sense, does it?
Exactly. So many people have brain fog and they don't realize that it could be stress, it could be diet. There's so many factors, and so you really do want
Many
to,
factors.
right?
So really have to take time with someone. We do an hour. My initial evaluation is an hour, and it's barely enough time to go through all these levels. But at the end, I feel like I know. Actually, at the end of an hour of sitting with a person, my teacher told me this, you really know a person. You've been through levels and layers, and it's just more than 60 minutes. I mean, you come out of that interview and it's like you know another soul. But you have to have the training for this. You have to know this is the way to go through the layers in a structured and organized fashion, and then you come out with result. I also want to mention that not everybody is ready for that whole thing that I just described. Um, some people only want nutrition, or they have a headache, but they don't want to deal with their stress, or they have stress, but they don't want to deal with a headache, or they want to use nutrition, but they don't want to use um, any therapy, or vice versa. So it's important to go where the patient wants to go. and establish an alliance, to be accepting of the patient, to be accepting of where they're at, where they can start. I remember where you started. Look where you started with before you were on gluten. How did you probably have a whole story behind you of how you discovered gluten and people wagged their heads at you and that's not possible and you're crazy and okay, well, did you take antibody studies? No, they're negative. Did you have a biopsy? No, they're negative. Did you get an antibody? But still, I feel this when I take gluten. You had to go where you lived, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a developmental step-by-step thing that happens in a doctor-patient relationship.
And I like that you say you go where the patient, wants to go, because otherwise you'd be that authoritative parent just barking at the patient, and until they're ready to make those changes, because you're not going to go home with them and make them do it. So until they're ready, like, they have
I
to
got
be on
enough
board.
kids. My kids are enough. I don't need all these. I don't need more kids. Believe me, I don't want to be parent to everybody. So, yeah, this is more of a facilitative, but some patients, some people like that kind of person, and that's okay. So if you can get that really authoritative, holistic doctor who says, "Look, I've been through this. I know how to chelate. I know how to prescribe. I know what you need." Okay, if that's the right person for that. Other people really want you as the sounding board. It's more of a physician coach. I had somebody like this the other day. They were a student of their health. They just like I was, they had studied things. They trusted me a little bit, but they trusted themselves completely. And they wanted, they just kind of sound things off me, and I thought that was great. So and there's everybody in between. So we have to just respect people where they're at. But the holistic paradigm is basically one about empowering the person so that they learn. Look what you learned about your diet. Look how you feel empowered. So you probably read, okay, I can gluten's not going to know. You probably read all about grains, high glycemic grains, low glycemic grains, which ones to eat in the morning, which ones in the evening. If you're going to use Ayurvedic medicine, you could just go forever on grains. Are grains dangerous? Are grains not dangerous? you know, you
It
could
is
become a grain expert.
it is definitely a rabbit
So
hole to go down, and I'm so thankful there's experts like you to help us navigate that. You had mentioned that one of the keys to health is to make sure that our careers in alignment with our life purpose. Can you give us any clues as to how we could begin to look at aligning our life to be within our life purpose? And I know we could do a whole episode just on that, but do you have any insights as to how we could begin to see more about ourselves in that part of our life?
it's a great question. I think I aligned myself with my life purpose. It took me mid 30s is what I did it. And took all that time, all those searchings. I also think that aligning yourself with your life purpose is what I call practical spirituality. So you align yourself with right work and with right relationships, and then you feel like you're um, performing the work that you were meant to do, that why you incarnated and why this soul incarnated in this world was to finish something that nobody else could finish. There's a key. It's actually a Hasidic. Hasidism is kind of a development of Kabbalah, but it's a thought that every soul that lives has a piece of the action. There is a purpose for which that soul is here, and if that soul doesn't do that purpose, it will never be done. The great puzzle of the world that what's called a tikkun, a healing to the world that we're all participating in, we all have a piece. And if you don't do your piece, nobody else is going to do it. And when I tell people that, especially adolescents, believe it or not, because they're so confused and sometimes mixed up and they don't know which way to go and overwhelmed by their hormones internally and externally by all the advertising and all the competition and all the gratifications that are going on. And so when I tell them that, hey, listen, put all that stuff down for a second. There's a purpose for you being here. Now, part of this life is to be healthy so that you can search for that purpose and then do that purpose. And when you do that purpose, you feel whole, you feel complete, you feel like you can look back on your life and say, I did what I was supposed to do. Now, I didn't really answer your question, did I? Because you're saying, how do you find that purpose? So that's why, later on my book, my book is like steps, because that's what my book was written as a gift back to my teachers at the Himalayan Institute. What I learned in steps was physical health through nutrition, mostly nutrition and exercise and using remedies when appropriate. And then peace of mind, because without peace of mind, if you, like you brought up this parent-child relationship, or it could be a boss-worker relationship, it could be anything that just really disturbs peace of mind. Once you have peace of mind, then you can work on clarity of consciousness. And when you work on clarity of consciousness, and the examples that I used in the book were breathing and relaxation and meditation and techniques like that, and prayer, by the way, personal prayer. So all those were means to an end, and the end was to open up the intuitive part of a person so that you can follow that intuition. You can follow, because we're given information, and the important, the sensitive, once you open up your sensitivity, that's what I talked about the light bulb going on. It's called a chachma. Chachma is the Hebrew word for it, where the light bulb, where the insight comes and the light goes on. And where does it come from? It doesn't come from our unconscious. It comes from our superconscious. So when that light bulb goes on and the information comes in, you say, that my cousin's right. I need to go to the Himalayan Institute and go over there. And I go over there and I listen to a couple of lectures and say, there's something about that. I need to listen to that person. And then when I sat in my first interview with Dr. Ballentine, as he was seeing someone, he finished the session with this person. And I said to myself, I have no idea what he just did, but I feel like that's the first time I've ever seen a real doctor.
Wow.
I actually had that insight. I have no idea what he just did, but I am sitting in the presence of a real doctor, and this is what I want to do. And so that intuition came to me. So how do you know if you're going down the right path? There are many ways to do that. One of the ways that I did, I need to admit this publicly, is that whatever I wanted to do was usually wrong. So I did the opposite of what I wanted to do. So if I was supposed to go study with him and I didn't want to, or I was this other person, I said, I'm going to do it. So I had to learn to make myself do the right thing. I feel if you learn to do the right thing or take the right next step in your life, what is my right next step? It's being on this podcast with you now. The right next step in a person's life takes them to another right next step. They don't have to figure 3 steps down the road and be anxious. They just have to use their mindfulness and their focus and their skills to figure out the right next step. And then that leads them to the right next step. And before you know it, you're 3 or 4 right next steps down your path. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I think that is so well said, because so many people are so anxious about the future, and if we can just focus on listening to our gut and making the right choice right now, having faith that the next one will unfold, right? Like the flower hasn't bloomed yet. We have to take that next step, and then the next one will unfold. But of course, if we knew everything, if we just looked into the future and saw all of our next choices, that would be boring. That's why life isn't like that, right?
Well, there would be no free choice. There would be no free choice. I mean, now we're talking spiritual. Now we're talking spirit. This isn't psychology anymore. So I divide things into mental and spiritual. So when I do psychotherapy with people, I say, okay, we're going to talk about your father or your mother and how this guy resembles your mother or your father, and don't press this button. I have a whole chapter on that in my book. I try to do it in detail so people could really understand what goes on inside a psychotherapy session. But then I put that down, and I may go into the spiritual like you just did. You mentioned the word faith. Did you notice that?
Mm-hmm.
You said you have to have faith. How do you not be anxious? You said. I'm interviewing you now. you you said, you said, yeah. How do you go into the future? How do you take step? You have to do that next step, and you have to have faith, right? That's a really important thing to develop, because without faith, life can be really, really anxious.
I think that faith, and this is something I've come to my own conclusion, is a mindset of positivity, of actively choosing to focus on the positive outcome, whether it's true or not. It doesn't matter. It's not that it's a lie or it's the truth. It's in the future, therefore it hasn't happened yet. And if we focus on a negative thing, we're more likely to create it because of our reticular activating system, and our focus always gets what we want, right? So we have to choose to focus on and go where we're going to go. Like in a car, you don't stare at the wall you don't want to hit. You stare at the open road that you want to drive down. And so we've got to faith in for me is that actively choosing to put the positive in the future.
That's beautiful. You can call that cup half full. You can call that cognitive behavioral therapy. Uh, you can take another step and say there's a divine plan for you,
Mm.
Ashley. I remember when things got really stressed around the clinic, and I said, "What are we going to do?" To my teacher, he said, "Don't worry, there's a divine plan for you. There's a divine plan for us." And boy, that just took the anxiety right out of me. And I wrote about it in my book. It's called Hashgacha Pratis. There's a divine plan for everybody. But I don't really talk to everybody, all our patients, about that. I do when they're open to it. I'm careful to respect people's boundaries that way. And lots of people are just not ready to hear that, and will rationalize, it's primitive thinking, or just rationalizing. I don't argue with people at all. But you and I are talking in this podcast, and you said I could let it hang out, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm thinking, when you get into the spiritual, oh, Dr. Gore, you got physical, you got energetic, you got mental, you got spiritual. What are you talking about spiritual? You talking about religion? No, we are not talking about religion. I'm talking about fulfilling your purpose. That is spiritual. I'm talking about having faith in what you do and having faith in life. And perhaps there is a spirit or creator that loves you, and actually has a plan for you. So you're not alone in this world. That's practical spirituality. That's part of being a doctor. Is that wrong? Am I wrong? Am
No,
I
you
am
are
I on the
right.
edge here? Am I on the edge here? On one hand, I could say, look, you got to stop. Geez, your ears are plugged. You're coughing like crazy. You have asthma and you're on medication. If you just stop this, geez, the whole thing could clear up. And then the next minute, I'm going, do you realize there's a divine plan for you? Just span the whole gamut. Boom, like that. Go from one end to the other. That doesn't happen very often, I'll tell you. But I'm open to it. And a good holistic practitioner, I am ready to teach them that you can talk these ways. People need this. I'm going to tell you that when I actually pull out prayer or faith or something, which is pretty rare, people are right there. I'm really shocked and surprised how many people believe in God and have a faith-based part of their life, and maybe they're just self-selecting themselves out to come to holistic medicine. But it's really a wonderful thing to see.
I think we're starving for it. I think we're really, really hungry for it. And
That's what my wife said. My wife works with us as she's MSW. She does social work, and she says when she brings the spiritual piece into her work with her clients, she used those exact words. She says they're starving for it.
hmm in the society, it's not active. The spiritual component, and everyone can choose the religion that works for them, or maybe they were just born into a religion, that's what they were raised around. But like you said, the spirituality is that connect your own personal connection with your creator, and your own personal connection with your life purpose. And your own faith. And when we're missing that, I think a lot of people kind of give up, and then they like go to fulfill that void with other things, whether it's substances or whether it's foods. Because sugar makes us feel good and lights up part of the brain that the same part of the brains that heroin and cocaine does, right? So
And
we're
don't forget chocolate. Don't
right
eat chocolate
we're,
out.
right we're gonna eat. We tend to go towards the neuro toxins, the excitotoxins, right, like MSG and all
Right.
those foods, because we have this huge void in our life. Maybe we have some emotional void. We're not feeling connection to. We don't have a connection. We're not getting enough hugs. I like to say we're not getting enough hugs. We're not actively seeking healthy relationships that fulfill us on that level. Or maybe we've really lost touch with our life purpose, and we just feel like we're bouncing around life, and that we don't have, that we're meaningless. We don't have that purpose. Like you said this beautifully, that if we don't fulfill our life purpose, no one will, and that'll be that piece of the puzzle that never gets filled. And so just to think that I get my life fills that unique piece of the puzzle makes me feel like I'm part of a greater whole. And then maybe I want to start taking care of myself. Maybe I want to commit to not doing dairy, like you said, because dairy was what was causing my earaches, right? But those who aren't even taking the time to invest in their physical health or mental health, maybe what was that missing component that would motivate them is that they haven't plugged into their spirituality and their purpose.
I think you bring out a great point, actually. So I'm listening to you and I'm remembering, which way do you go? Western medicine goes from the physical. Maybe they think there's energetic. They're starting to believe there's a mind, and they don't talk about a spirit, but all the energies with the physical. Holistic medicine goes the opposite. They start with the spiritual, and then that precipitates down into the mental body. This is a yoga philosophy. And then it comes down into the energy body, and then finally precipitates down into the physical. So the organizing functionality comes from top down, from the mind down through the energy into the body. So if you have a purpose in life, if you feel like you're on that purpose, you are going to want to use tools like good nutrition and exercise, and use medical therapeutics that don't hurt but help. And why? Because you have a precious instrument, your soul. Your soul is here, and you're in touch with your purpose. And you can see that if you plug it up, if you plug up an engine with sand, it doesn't run. If you plug this body up with bad thoughts, it doesn't think right. If you plug this energy body up, it doesn't feed the energy to the organs, and the organs start to create attention. If you're not eating right, and if you're feeling lousy and your energy's down and you have symptoms, then your mind is pulled down into it's called gashmias, into the materiality of life, in a not good way. We want to use the materiality of life in a good way. We don't want to escape it. We want to be involved in it and uplift it and transform it. We don't want it to bury us alive. And so our whole life is a struggle with the negative effects of the material world, which is illness and overproduction and overaccumulation, et cetera, et cetera. Well, how's that for a little paragraph?
I love it. I think it's beautiful. I wish that all doctors practice in the philosophy that you do, because this is so refreshing to have you
I'm
have you on the
mixing in a
show.
little Kabbalah here. That's not fair, I mean, it's like taking all my life to learn this. I didn't learn this in medical school and stuff, but it's not. You got to be fair to everybody. I'm working hard. I'm still working hard on my own life, and I'm putting it together and learning and putting these concepts together. But it's really important to realize this is a spiritual concept, that we're not trying to get rid of the world or get out of the world or overindulge in the world. We want to use the world properly, good things properly, good foods properly, love making properly, sleep properly, making a living properly, food, sex, sleep, and self-preservation, the four kleshas that yoga talks about. We want to use these properly. We want to be the dog that wags the tail, not the tail that wags the dog. You like that, Ashley?
Yeah, that's my new mantra. I
Okay.
think well, I'm a cat person, so I'm gonna be like,
Oh, all
I'm
right.
gonna be the cat that purrs, not the purr that cats. I don't know.
When the cat wags the tail, I got to get out of there. They don't like it when their tail wags.
Now you've got this great book. Let's talk about your book, which sounds fantastic. The link to it, of course, and everything you do is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntruehealth.com. Tell us about your book and maybe give us some insights as to what we would be learning from your book when we read it.
Well, the book is kind of it is an accumulation of the work that I learned from my teachers at the Himalayan Institute, and then I've continued on myself. So I basically, now that I'm practicing on my own for quite a while, I looked back and I said, what did I learn over these years? And what did I learn? What did I learn that I want to share? And what I learned was physical health, how to get physically healthy. I was confused about that before. How to eat, not just what to eat. It's how to eat. Did you know that that's really important? How to eat, chewing your food, what time you eat, what constitution you are, and what's good for you, and the thinking that you're doing when you're eating the food. There's a how to eat and a what to eat. So that's important. And then how to exercise. Some chapters in there about flexibility and strength and balance, and how to think about exercise in a little different way. So I put that in the realm of the physical health. And then peace of mind. How did I achieve peace of mind? I'm not pretending that I have any great peace of mind more than anybody else, but I've been working on it. So how do I work to achieve my peace of mind? So I put that in the middle of the book. And what I used for that was I used counseling and psychotherapy because I have done that pretty much all my professional life. And I gave a case of a couples therapy, and I took it apart because I do a lot of it's called inner child work, where I teach people mostly, who are anxious or have difficulties. Usually, it's their inner child that is calling out to them and needs attention, quite frankly. And when we introduce the adult to the inner child, lo and behold, we can achieve some peace. And also, there's some basic psychological things about that are called transferences. Maybe we grew up with parents that were less than perfect, and we carried over some of those experiences to our present day relationships, and how to separate those out. So that's one half of the part of peace of mind. The other part is to get into this idea that we have a divine plan. And so I have developed that a little bit, that everyone has a divine plan, and how this kind of thinking can really help somebody who's anxious. And once again, when you're looking for the right next step, if you're anxious about it, you're not sure what to do, falling back and remembering that there's a divine plan for yourself is a nice way to comfort yourself. So I talk about those two things under the peace of mind section. And then in the last section, which is clarity of consciousness, that's something that I completely learned from my teachers in the institute, which was to meditate and open up that intuitive part of ourselves, open up our intuitive part to a higher consciousness. So how do you do that? So you have to sit, and then you have to relax, and then idea is to get a mantra and be able to meditate. There's a lot of ways to meditate, but so I talked about breathing and what it does to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, and I talked about different types of breathings, and then I talked about premeditative breathing, and then I talked about meditation, and I went into a little detail, and there's diagrams and pictures, and with the whole idea of being able to meditate to clear your mind and allow yourself to reside in a deeper place of stillness from which wisdom and gifts of knowledge come. And then I capped off the book with purpose in life because, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to sit on a mountain and then get in touch with your soul? No, that's not what I was taught. What I was taught was you do this in the world, one foot in the higher world and one foot in this world, so that you can bridge the gap and bring those skills and bring that kind of mindfulness into this world and uplift it through your thoughts, speech, and action. So that's kind of a really and then there is one other part in the book. I put this in between the physical health and the peace of mind, and I put an energy medicine. So there's a section in there on energy medicine which covers homeopathy and flower essences and breathing.
I love it.
So it's like a ladder. It goes from physical health, and this is the way I experienced it too. Once I stopped fighting everybody and decided that I was going to eat properly, let go of my huge desire for gratification, which I still have and fight every single day, and I started eating well. Okay, then I started breathing. Then I started exercising. So my body, and with doing some yoga and doing some exercising and eating right, my body, thank God, was pretty healthy. And then I started going into the mental stuff. I cleared out a lot of my mental stuff with psychotherapy, and then got into this right thinking and the philosophical studies of yoga and Hasidus. And then I started to meditate, and it's like a ladder. If you can follow that ladder, if you're really good physically and energetically, then you can sit. And if you can sit, and then when you start to meditate, there's not a lot of bad things that come up in your mind. If there are, they have to clean out. But if you've worked on your life, then your mind can quiet down, and then you can go to the more silent and fertile places of openness in your mind, and that's the clarity of consciousness. So it's like a ladder. And then they have a philosophy of life of my soul really is here for a purpose. What is that purpose? Let me go do it. Let me go uplift this world. Let me uplift this relationship with my coworker. Let me uplift this relationship with this patient. Let me uplift this drive that I have to do. Instead of boring and looking out the window, I'm going to think about something positive and uplift the highway and uplift the car and uplift the conversation. And once you start thinking like that, all of life actually becomes a song. And I didn't put that in my book.
Save it for the next
like
one.
that.
Yeah. It's so true. Just yesterday, I had the choice to just to go back to what you said about how every day you fight this part of you that wants to eat whatever you want, or the part of you that's like, I don't want to exercise, and whatever that part is. And I'm like, I don't know if it's the ego, what is it. I have identified that I have that, absolutely, and I call it my brat. And my brat wants to eat chocolate, wants to sit in front of the TV at any possible time I can, does not want to go out for morning walks, does not want to exercise, hates cooking a whole foods diet. Like my brat, if I let my brat control everything, I would be doing nothing and be totally, gluttonous. And so every day I have to kind of like recognize that those thoughts come up, and those little I don't know, like a direction, like my body starts to steer towards the chocolate, right? Or starts to steer towards the couch. And I got to go, oh, my brat just took the wheel. Okay, that's not, I have to actively still go, okay, no. I'm going to have 2 servings of vegetables, and I'm not having any sugar. But I love the result afterwards. So when I don't listen to my brat and I have to kind of, steer it away from what my brat wants me to do, I love the result. I feel so good, and I'm so happy, and I feel so fulfilled. So it's the brat is like um the devil archetype that is testing my resolve, and that is kind of poking me in the back going, do you really want to be healthy? Come on, let's go break all these, resolves that you've created. Let's go just pig out, let's we can have a pizza, it can be gluten free, let's go sit on the couch and eat it, and I have to constantly recognize that's like the devil archetype, testing my desire and my resolve to have this other life, to have this healthy life. Because if we want to follow the brat, we're going to end up like a statistic. We're going to end up like the obese population with diabetes and on 3 or more medications, on NSAIDs and in pain, and 1 in 2 women, dying of or having a diagnosis of cancer. Like, if you want to be a statistic, then just like let that brat guide your life, right? So when I recognized that in me, I went, "Oh my gosh, I need to daily, actively, consciously, continuously grab the wheel and steer it towards what I want." And I can't, I have to be diligent constantly, right? So yesterday I was cooking some amazing vegetables for lunch, and I knew it was going to take about 5 minutes on the stove. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put on the TV and watch TV 5 minutes. And I said, no, I can just sit here and I'm going to do nothing. Like, how everyone says meditate. Well, I'm just going to sit here and do
Mm,
nothing.
mm.
And it's hard for me to sit there and do nothing, but I just sat there. It's a beautiful day. I sat on the couch, and we've got a sunlight. So sun was filtering in the room. And in that 5 minutes, I had a massive revelation. Like this
Wow, that's
problem that I had
great.
been struggling with for so long finally kind of came to the surface, because I let my brain just, because I just sat there
Mhm.
and did nothing and breathed and was just quiet enough for my brain to finally go, hey, this problem that has been festering at you, let's solve it. And in that 5 minutes,
Mhm.
I had this fantastic revelation that's completely changed my life, just from sitting still for a few minutes. So I wanted to share that with you, because I know what you're talking about this having to really like consciously go, oh wow, that was that part of me that doesn't want to be healthy, and it's doing me no good. So I'm not gonna give into it. I'm gonna go in this direction, and then also just sitting still, even for a few minutes. You don't even have to call it meditation. Some people are afraid of meditation. For years I was afraid of hypnosis and meditation, because I thought, like, what's going to come up, if I be
Mhm.
still, what's going to happen? And so I know a lot of people are like that, and if you just be still and breathe and just allow yourself to rise to the surface, maybe you could end up resolving lots of stuff that has been waiting for you to be still enough to resolve it.
Beautiful. Just everything you said was beautiful, and not just because you're interviewing me. It was perfect. I mean, I'm with you every word. What you call the brat, there are spiritual names for that, but when I listened to that brat and I said, I'm tired. I just gonna go down and listen to 5 minutes of television. The 5 minutes turns into an hour and a
Oh,
half. I
totally.
come back later, my whole evening is shot. I'm so upset with myself. So you have found a way to be able to delay, the what you call the brat wants you to put something in your mouth or do some gratification step, which sometimes you need, but a lot of times you don't. And when you don't need it, what you did was delayed. I tell my patients if they can take 3 breaths, inhale and exhale, ideally through their nostrils, with no pauses or hesitations. Inhalation goes into exhalation, and exhalation goes into inhalation. 3 times. What they're doing is they're moving the the energy from the amygdala, the old brain where the fight or flight response is taken over, and the animal part of themselves is taken over. And by the third breath, I say if they can actually make it to the fourth breath, they're now in the frontal cortex, and they're now the human being wagging the tail rather than the tail wagging the dog. Now, all it takes is 3 breaths. And then when you're at that third, it's a lot easier to get the fourth. And when you're in the fourth, you're done. That's what I've seen over and over in crisis situations. If I can get someone who's really angry in a couple situation, woman's angry at her husband or whatever, and get 3 breaths out of both of them, they go to the fourth, all of a sudden the anger's gone. They still have the concern, but the anger's gone. Or here, if you want to put something in your mouth, right? You sit and you breathe. And by the third to fourth breath, the anxiety is gone, and you now can make a decision whether you're really hungry or whether you're just tired.
That is fantastic. One of the naturopaths I've gone to in the past, she had to battle breast cancer, and that was a big wake up call for someone who'd been a naturopath for over 30 years to have to face the fact that maybe she was not living as healthy as she could because she developed breast cancer, and now she's on the other side, but she's learned all those lessons from it. And she said that one of the things she really had to get was that when we're never make major life decisions in fear mode, because the body shunts blood away from the logic centers of the brain, and so we're not even we might think we're thinking with our brain, but we're not, and so we have to get out of fear mode, never make any decision in life when you're in fear mode, because you don't have your logic brain turned on. There's just no blood flow to it. It's not even working for us. And so I love that you say that in any of those situations to take 3 or 4 of those deep continuous breaths. My husband and I, early on, and we have a fantastic relationship, we developed a strategy, and I don't even know how we did it, where no matter how angry we are at each other, and we work together, we live together, we're always around each other, so we have lots of opportunities to get on each other's nerves. But whenever we're kind of bickering or frustrated with each other, one of us tries to get the other one to laugh. And like just today, I was so
It's
frustrated
a
with
great
him.
idea.
He was picking at me, or he was saying something, and I thought he was being serious, and I sort of like he was pushing my buttons, right? And so I kind of started to get my shoulders raised, and I could feel the tension in my neck, and I was clenching my jaw and about to like fight back, right? And then he said something that he knew would totally make me laugh, and it completely de-escalated the situation. And we do that to each other all the time, even when we're both upset. We figure out something to laugh. It could be a gesture that's funny, even sticking out our tongue, and we
It's
allow
beautiful. I call
ourselves.
that, you know what I call that?
What?
In couples therapy, I call that using a circuit breaker.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
couples go at each other, I say rather than destroy your relationship, someone pulls the circuit breaker and you come back later to talk.
Right. Well, we find
And
out
so,
once we're laughing, it doesn't even matter. It was so silly. And oftentimes we were arguing about something so silly, and like I got my feelings hurt from something so dumb, or I totally misinterpreted what he said, or he misinterpreted what I said. It's nothing. It's stupid. And yet we could have started World War III around it. And we figure out how to make each other laugh really fast, and then we can kind of talk it out. But you're right. We figured out how to do that, and it's very similar to your breaths, because I feel like by laughing, we're kind of doing a lot of breathing,
right, that's wonderful.
and then we're out of that amygdala response.
Right. And you also mentioned something that came up in my mind when you were speaking about that doctor who had learned so much from having breast cancer.
Hmm.
See, this is the other definition of holistic medicine is your body and your mind become a university. You actually learn from your illness. I was taught that illness means something is off in a person's life, physically, energetically, emotionally, or spiritually. Something's not aligned. So rather than get rid of the symptom, you try to learn something and snap back into alignment. So what you do is, let's say you eat something and it causes mucus, and the mucus causes chronic cough or bronchitis or something. And so you learn that, well, hey, bananas make mucus, and um, cooked vegetables are more mucusy than raw vegetables, and apples cut mucus, and melons make it worse. And all of a sudden, you have knowledge. You get some knowledge, and you have some empowerment. So the whole idea, and by the way, that person with asthma was getting rid of mucus. We teach them diaphragmatic breathing and how to expand their diaphragm. So it's not just chest breathing. It turns into either abdominal or diaphragmatic breathing. So now they know something about nutrition to help themselves, and they know something about breathing to help themselves. And we may get into their stress levels to help themselves. The point is that they're using their illness and they're using their illness, their conditions of illness, to learn about themselves and grow, and then to empower, and then to finally self-regulate. It's a learning process.
Listening to the
You
Simpsons.
get bigger. You get
Right.
bigger.
Right.
You become larger as a person. Your soul grows. Your soul grows through treating yourself. Our patients graduate That's what I use the term graduate. When they're done, they are teachers now to other people. They're teaching other people a neti pot. They're teaching another person how to breathe. They're teaching another person, well, you don't have to have a biopsy and show antibodies for gluten. You can have gluten sensitivity. You know, they're teaching another person, just walk or bend a little bit every day, or your young is your spine, according, they become teachers. They're not just a victim anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Really, that's what got me into this. I didn't want to be a victim. I wanted some control over my life. I wanted some agency over my health.
And that's the difference between like standard MDs are kind of still buying into that victim mentality that we're victim, our body is not whole and complete, that we're broken and we need some kind of drug to regulate our metabolism and somehow upregulate or downregulate or manage a symptom, and we're really broken into parts, right? Whereas
Well, I
real.
don't know that. I'm not going to comment negatively about how standard MDs are trained, because I've used these standard MDs many, many times and become one of them sometimes. And that medicine is really important.
Mhm.
But I do believe personally that there really is no philosophy of medicine really in Western medicine, that the Chinese and the Indian, the Ayurvedic medicines, there are philosophies of human beings that are integrated into the medicine. A philosophy of medicine has to be integrated into what is a human being. And when that's taught in medical schools, then we're really, the thing that looks so bad right now, just treat the symptom and leave my office. That'll have a place. It needs a home. What they're
Mhm.
missing is a home. What they're missing is a context.
Mhm. Right, it's very good for certain modalities. We definitely still want it, but right now they're using it for everything, and it's not working for
I
everything.
agree. I think you're right. I think that it's more of an emergency medicine.
Mhm.
To take away a symptom is really important when it's life or death,
Mhm.
or when there's a lot of pain. But short of those things, it's more for convenience, so the person continue on the way they do things without changing.
Right. And if we keep going down that road, we're just going to keep having more and more symptoms. Like that idea that the body speaks to us in symptoms, and like you said, we need to learn from those, and then we have become empowered because we learn from our symptoms. I ate that food, I got more mucusy. I stopped eating that food, I get less mucusy. We can learn to listen to our body and listen to our symptoms. And I love that you graduate your patients so that they've become their healer. Let's talk about your clinic, because I know my listeners are definitely interested in learning more from you. Can
Listen, if
you?
you keep going down that road, you become chopped liver.
Mm.
That's a joke, by the way. I made a joke. Not a good. If you keep going down that, you become mush. You become. I don't want to age the way most people are aging. I want
Mhm.
to age gracefully. I want to age. I want to come into my years, but I want to come into my years healthy and wise. So you need a supple body, and you need to eat right, and you need a healthy mind, and you need a good spirit, and you need a good spiritual philosophy. And then I think we can stay away from becoming chopped liver or becoming a pile of mush with a bunch of drugs who mean well. It's so hurts me to see so many well-meaning, generous heroines and heroes for what they've done for their families, and their just all bodies are broken up and they're on all these medications. So I do think that holistic medicine can offer a learning curve so we don't have to age that way.
Well said.
So, okay. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No, no, I thank you for
add to
wrapping
your.
that up. That was perfect. Your clinic is in Riverwoods in Deerfield, Illinois. Center for Holistic Medicine. Of course, the link to that's going to be in the show notes of today's podcast. Do people have to come see you in person? Can people around the world have a appointment with you, like through telemedicine or through Skype, or do they have to come see you in person? How does it work to work with you?
Well, most of my patients come in person, but I am available through Skype. I can do that because I have a lot to work with. I don't have to put my, it's better if I see the person and I can see them physically and maybe do a physical. But if I just act in my capacity as a holistic educational consultant, we can go over their diet and I can get a history about homeopathy for them that might help. And we can, I can talk about their stress levels and I can do some counseling. I can do most of it really just looking at the person online, I suppose. I'm willing to do that if people would like to be helped that way.
Wonderful. And you have classes. Tell us about all the things that we should know that you offer at your center.
Well, we have a lot of doctors and practitioners under one roof. That's the way, in order to do what everything I'm telling you, we needed practitioners for physical. We have a naturopath to help me with nutrition, and we have a chiropractor for body work, and we actually have two chiropractors, and we have a napropath, NAP, naturopathy, not naturopath, but napropath. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so he is a soft tissue expert. So there are a lot of people that we have for body work to help the physical. And then energetically, we have acupuncture and we have homeopathy. And we have actually a yoga teacher who comes in and helps teach breathing. So we're accessing the energy pranic vehicle that way through acupuncture and homeopathy and breathing and relaxation. And then for the mind, we have psychotherapists. So we have a couple counselors, and I myself do counseling, individuals, families, and couples. And I think that's about it. I can't remember, I'm trying to remember. I don't have my staff list in front of me, but I'm going according to my mind to the physical, energetic, mental, spiritual. So my wife and I needed practitioners that would cover all the bases. And what I do is kind of figure out what a person needs. And I either do it myself. I used to do most of this myself, not the body work, but all the things except the body work. But now I have these wonderful practitioners who, Sujata just does homeopathy, and Katie just does naturopathy. So I'm really lucky that way.
So when someone comes to your clinic, or do they like see you and then you refer them to the other practitioners in your clinic, and so there's sort of someone making sure that they're having all the care they need. How what does it look like to be a patient of your clinic?
Yeah. So a patient comes in, and we a lot of times they'll see me first. Oh, by the way, I have internal medicine. We're an integrated medical clinic. So what makes it integrated is we have family practice and internal medicine. This is really important. So I have an internal medicine DO, and she works with us and handles traditional medicine in the traditional way. And we work back and forth with each other. And I also have a nurse practitioner who works with a lot of children and teenagers, and she has a little bit of functional medicine training, but also works in traditional medicine, so she can do what we call integrated medicine. Integrated medicine means when you need an antibiotic, you get an antibiotic. When you don't need one, maybe we can use it with homeopathy or through nutrition. And that's, in short, what integrative medicine is. Being able to go on both sides of the coin. Okay, so how does a patient come in and see me? So a lot of times they'll come in and see me, or if they want traditional medicine, they'll come in and see Dr. Schwartz, who's a DO, or they'll come in and see me, or they'll come and see Dr. Farah, who's an internist. And if they come in and see me, then I'll take their case and spend an hour with them going over the various things that I've talked to you about. I might go over their diet, I might go over their illnesses and their history of their illnesses and their stress history and their family history, and do a brief physical exam. And in the end, present them with a plan. And the plan might be, would you bring in your 3-day diet record? I want Katie to see you. I want to do a nutritional analysis. So there's some functional medicine testing that we do that's a little non-traditional. You won't find it in traditional doctor's offices. So I might want to do that. I might want to shoot some GI effects because, as you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the gut now. There's the feeling that the gut is the cause of autoimmune diseases. So we want to see what's growing in the gut, if there's inflammation in the gut. So there's these gut affiliated tests. So, what kind of testing are we going to do? Are we going to do some regular blood testing and look at your thyroid and look at your liver and look at your CBC and your comprehensive metabolic profile and your urine? It's traditional stuff. Or are we going to do some of these other tests? And do we want to see the nutritionist? Or maybe I think you need a homeopathic remedy. I had a patient the other day who was hospitalized for a cerebral event. They're now out of the hospital, but I really feel the right person that they should see is their homeopath, because sometimes homeopathy can help a left-sided or right-sided stroke or things like that. So if I can't do it myself, I'll refer to the homeopath. If I feel that the nutritionist has a better handle on what's going on nutritionally, I'll refer them with a 3-day diet record to her, and I will supervise. So we'll have two heads in on that one. If the person needs a body worker, I have several body workers to choose from. If their stress levels, I always ask them to tell me if their stress levels from 1 to 10, how high. If they get up 6, 7, 8, or 9, I want to do a saliva test to look at their cortisols to see, can we help support their adrenals while they're stressed? Why are they stressed? Do they need some counseling? Do they need some breathing? I have people to do this. So what's happened to me over the years is that instead of me doing everything, I have everybody else doing everything. And I'm like the general who sends them to one person or another and who keeps in touch and sometimes brings them back, and sometimes I'll do it. I can go both ways. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound
That makes complete sense.
like...
It kind of in my mind seems like the holistic Mayo Clinic. And my friend who went to the Mayo Clinic said she was really surprised. She felt like it was so fractionated, and one specialist wasn't talking to the other specialist, and she felt like, she thought there would be kind of this one general who was running her team and the whole team would work together, and still she felt like she was just being sent from one specialist to the other. No one was talking to each other. And that was just her experience, but it's interesting to, with what you're doing, that sounds like such a great holistic clinic, because you are making sure that person is going to the specialist and going to the different specialists, but you're keeping in touch with the person as a whole and with all of their
I want to
practitioners.
know that my practitioners are helping these people.
Right.
I have a guy who's specializing, Dr. Preby. He's a chiropractic doctor, and he's specializing in rehab, and he's got some different ways of doing this. And I sent some patient to him. The patient's coming out and saying, "Hey, was that helpful? Did that help you? Did he help you? Did she help you?" I want to know if people are getting what are improving. So we can communicate like that because we're still relatively, we're not a huge metropolis. We're not a corporation. We're enough people that we can work together and communicate together. And that's really what makes it fun. I mean, I didn't tell you that I wanted to practice medicine in a way that was not only just fulfilling, but was fun. I wanted to enjoy coming to work.
Right, and
And
know that
I,
you're
and
making
I,
a
and I do.
difference. Yeah, it sounds like you're making a
So
fantastic difference, and I love the work you do, and I definitely would love to have you back on the show. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and I love how passionate you are at teaching people and helping people to gain their true health. I do have a few questions to wrap it up. You had mentioned earlier that not only what you eat's important, but how you eat's important. Of course, chewing food. But another aspect was when to eat. And I've noticed that in my own health, I could eat the exact same, macros and calories. But if I eat at 11 o'clock at night versus 6 o'clock at night, I'll either gain weight or lose weight. And it's the same kind of food. It was just when was I eating it? And so I really noticed that with my own body. Could you share with us what are the ideal times to eat?
well, everybody has their own idea about that. Uh, some people think you should have 2 meals a day and eat around 11 and at 5 and have a 16-hour fast. Other people believe in the big breakfast. And in Ayurveda, the way I was trained, you go with the rhythms of the day, and you basically go with the rhythm of the sun. So the sun's coming up, you have something for breakfast, but it's not your biggest meal of the day. And as the sun reaches its zenith, it's called pitta, fire energy, you have more digestive fire, and that, according to them, is your biggest meal of the day. And then as the sun is waning, pitta is turning into kapha, and then this is a smaller meal. So, and what you really don't want to do is eat after the sun goes down, because this time is meant for cleansing. You don't want to have food in your stomach when the different meridians, so-called, Chinese medicine talk about the lung cleansing at certain time, the liver, I think the liver time for cleansing is 3 o'clock. That's why so many people wake up at 3 o'clock if there's dysfunctional cleansing. So if you eat early, then you can cleanse, and then by the time you wake up at 7 in the morning, you've already done a 12-hour fast. So at 7, 8 o'clock, you can take something. You can take some protein. You can take some fruit and protein, or a grain. People have to work this out to see what's best for them. But as I said, it's an individual variation. I can't tell you exactly how to do it. So I can only just tell you there are different theories.
Very cool. Very cool. Wonderful. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show, and I highly recommend that listeners check out your website, holistic-medicine.com, the Center for Holistic Medicine, and also get your book, which is so wonderful. Your book, Holistic Medicine, Physical Health, Peace of Mind, and Clarity of Consciousness. Of course, the links to both of those will be in the show notes of today's podcast. I'd love for you to finish today's interview by giving our listeners some homework. What would you like to challenge them to do?
What am I challenging the world to do? Well, I would say I'm going to go according to the structure that I've laid out in the physical realm. Eat with consciousness. If you eat with consciousness and mindfulness, you'll know how much to eat, and you'll figure out what to eat, with all these different theories and different recommendations going on. Eat with consciousness. I would also like our listeners to move their bodies, because if it turns out that if you walk, and maybe a little weight-bearing exercise, especially for the women so they don't lose their bone, walk a little and do a little weight-bearing exercise a couple times a week, maybe 2-3 times a week, with 1-pound weights even, or just lift up grocery bags or walk up the stairs. Make these choices and you will stay younger longer. So that's the physical. And I'm going to skip the energetic, but I do think that in the mental, you need to, like we talked about before, we need to approach your life as if you're special. You're special. And you have a unique soul, you have a unique gift in this world, and if you don't give that gift, you are obligated to give that gift in my eyes, and in the eyes of the ancient traditions. It's not a choice. You can't just hang out. You're obligated. You have purpose. Whether you choose to accept it or not, you have a purpose. Accept it. Then everything snaps into place. The health snaps into place. The mind snaps into place. The love snaps into place. Enjoyment snaps into place. So I just want to bless everybody who listens to your program. This is a wonderful program. People can just benefit so much from it. I hope everyone tunes in and listens to all your podcasts and uplifts the world that we lived in, because that's what we need. We need to look at everybody, all our brothers and sisters, and say, you're a fellow on the journey and you're helping uplift this place that we live.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jerry Gore. It has been such a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed talking to you. You helped me a lot. Thanks. I learned a lot today.
Enjoy what you heard today on your episode of the Learn True Health podcast. Did something move you, inspire you? Did you get great information that's going to change your life? Awesome. That's exactly what I'm here to do, is to help you gain your health back. Please turn around and share this. If this is something that's helped you in any way, share this with those you love. Love the Learn True Health podcast and want to support us? Awesome. You can go to takeyoursupplements.com and you can support us that way. You'll get access to amazing supplements that are just really great quality for a great price. And there'll be someone on the other end of the line to help you pick out your supplements that are right for you. That's takeyoursupplements.com, or join our membership. LearnTrueHealth.com/join. That's another great way to support our podcast, support our movement, and you'll be supporting yourself. Gain more information, wonderful videos, wonderful trainings, and you'll also be able to share those with those you love as well. So go to LearnTrueHealth.com/join. Want something fun for free? Go to LearnTrueHealth.com, and right there on the front page, you'll see where you can get our free cookbook. I spent a lot of time making it, and it was so much fun. It's really delicious, healthy recipes. And you can also get our 7-day doctor course. Right there, it's 7 days of naturopathic videos sent right to your inbox, and you can learn from top naturopaths on how to gain health naturally. So that's takeyoursupplements.com for wonderful supplements. LearnTrueHealth.com/join to join our awesome membership, which is only open for a limited time. You can get our free healthy cookbook, and you can also get for free 7 days of wonderful naturopathic videos sent to you. Just go to LearnTrueHealth.com and you'll see it right there on the front page. Thank you so much for being a listener, and thank you for sharing and helping others. Let's spread this information and turn this ripple into a tidal wave.